The sun hung low on a late summer afternoon as the familiar scent of barbecue and laughter mingled in the air. Vanessa arrived at the family gathering with a quietly determined hope that today might be like any other, a day of shared memories and lighthearted banter. Yet beneath the easy chatter and the clink of iced glasses lay undercurrents of old, unspoken judgments that had long defined her place within this family tapestry. As the conversation ebbed and flowed around her, Vanessa found herself lingering near the picnic table, a quiet observer of the jokes and jibes that, over the years, had been disguised as playful remarks. It was then that Marissa, her sister-in-law, whose saccharine smile masked a cutting disdain, leaned in with a remark meant as a joke but laden with an icy truth. "You know, Vanessa," she said softly, "if you ever just disappeared, I'm pretty sure no one would even notice." The words, though delivered in a tone that pretended levity, struck deep. In that moment, the familiar sting of being undervalued surged forth, a painful echo of every whispered assumption of insignificance. Inside her, a storm gathered, not one of explosive anger, but a quiet, resolute transformation. In the midst of the laughter and the clamor of the BBQ, a steady internal voice emerged. In a moment of crystalline clarity, Vanessa's mind firmly declared, "I'm Vanessa, 33, and I'm more than your whispered assumptions." That inner proclamation wasn't just a thought. It was a full-throated promise to herself, a turning point where years of suppressed hurt were distilled into a single, defiant commitment. Silently, beneath the surface of the ongoing festivities, that remark ignited a spark. The sting of Marissa's callous joke morphed into a secret vow, a determination to redefine her worth and reclaim her narrative. "Challenge accepted," Vanessa whispered in the silent sanctuary of her heart, letting that commitment ripple through her veins like a surge of newfound strength. Even as her lips curved into a subtle, enigmatic smile that betrayed nothing to those around her, every fiber of her being was already pivoting toward change. The family BBQ, once a simple backdrop for casual conversation, had transformed into the launching pad for a journey of reinvention. Vanessa's eyes shimmered with an inner light that promised not revenge in the clashing of tempers, but a transformation so profound it would render past hurts obsolete. In that simple moment, framed by the low hum of familial chatter and the distant call of summer cicadas, Vanessa set the foundation for a new destiny. Every beat of her heart, every quiet breath, was a step away from old assumptions and toward a future built on triumph over trivial dismissals. The spark was lit. The journey had begun. As dusk surrendered to the deep, unyielding dark of night, Vanessa felt an unusual calm envelop her. Earlier that day, the sting of Marissa's thoughtless words had kindled a quiet fire within, and now, under the muted streetlights, she prepared for an irrevocable change. With measured determination, she gathered only the essentials, a few changes of clothes, her sketchbook filled with dreams and rough sketches of a future unwritten, and most importantly, a small diary that had chronicled years of whispered doubts and bruised hopes. In the solitude of her little apartment, every packed item marked a farewell to the person she had been. The diary, its pages frayed at the edges, was the one object she could not bear to carry with her anymore. It represented every whispered assumption, every silent judgment that had once kept her tethered. In a deeply symbolic moment, Vanessa set the diary on the kitchen table, a silent, resolute gesture of abandoning the old self that had been defined by others' expectations. She whispered to herself, "I leave behind the fragments of a life that is no longer mine." With that, she locked the door to her past behind her. Stepping into the cool embrace of the night, the streets unfolded before her like an unwritten canvas. Every corner and every quiet alley became a metaphor for her journey, a path strewn with uncertainty, yet gleaming with the potential of renewal. In the subdued whispers of the night wind, her internal dialogue echoed softly. "Each step away is a step towards a future sculpted by my own hands. I am not defined by those who underestimated me." The pavement, bathed in the silver luminescence of a watchful moon, mirrored the solitude of her decision. It was as if the city itself was urging her onward, promising that in these winding, empty streets lay the fresh start she so desperately sought. In that singular night of departure, with nothing more than a small bag of essentials and a heart heavy with both sorrow and resolve, Vanessa embarked on a journey forged not by anger or confrontation, but by the silent, steadfast promise of transformation. Every footstep was a repudiation of old wounds, and every silent turn in the maze of the city was a vow to create a life where she would finally be seen as the bold, self-made woman she was destined to become. The night stretched out like a quiet secret as Vanessa stepped away from the life that had once defined her. There was no dramatic farewell, no tearful goodbyes or desperate last words that marked her exit. Instead, her departure was a silent act of self-liberation, a deliberate erasure of an identity built on the fragile expectations of others. Under the soft glow of streetlights, Vanessa boarded a train destined for the unknown, each step forward a testament to her resolve to leave the old behind. As the train began its steady journey, the rhythmic clack of the wheels on the tracks became a metronome for her thoughts. In the gentle hum of the carriage, memories of past gatherings, whispered jibes, the sting of Marissa's careless remark, the suffocating weight of silent judgment flashed through her mind like fleeting snapshots. These flashbacks weaved seamlessly with her present determination, each memory dissolving slowly into the darkened scenery outside her window. The passing stations, illuminated briefly before fading into obscurity, mirrored the dismantling of toxic bonds that had long held her captive. In that moving sanctuary of steel and determination, each mile traveled was a step away from a suppressed past and toward an emerging self. Vanessa's inner dialogue was both reflective and forward-thinking. With every station passed, I am shedding the weight of memories that no longer serve me. I am on the road to becoming what I've always been meant to be. The quiet journey transformed into a metaphor for a personal renaissance, a vanishing act where her former self was left behind like old letters and fading photographs. It wasn't an exit marked by fireworks or confrontation, but a subtle, soul-stirring metamorphosis, where hope glimmered on the horizon of every new, uncharted mile. Vanessa arrives in Seattle under a sky brushed with soft twilight hues, stepping off the train into a world that pulses with the creative energy the city is renowned for. The air is cool and invigorating, carrying whispers of new beginnings as she takes her first tentative steps along familiar yet exciting streets. Each footstep feels like a note in a brand new symphony, a promise that every aspect of her past is yielding to fresh, bold possibilities. Navigating the vibrant design district, Vanessa is immediately enveloped by the dynamic rhythm of creative expression. Colorful murals drape the walls of converted warehouses. Quirky cafes overflow with artistic chatter, and fashion-forward individuals stride along sidewalks that teem with inspiration. Amid this thriving milieu, Vanessa finds herself drawn to a bustling intersection lined with art galleries and local studios. Here, the city's energy mirrors her own evolution, gritty determination interlaced with a vision for transformation. In this defining moment, with the urban landscape as her witness, Vanessa lifts her chin and asserts confidently, "I'm Vanessa, 33, and I'm ready to rebuild." The declaration isn't just a greeting to the community, it's a personal manifesto. Her statement reverberates amid the chatter of unheard dreams and the clatter of creative hustle. Parting from the echoes of her old life, she anchors herself in the present, poised to shape her future with every daring step. The vibrant streets of Seattle, imbued with relentless energy and hidden artistic sanctuaries, become a living canvas where Vanessa can reimagine herself. With resolute determination, she moves forward, embracing the city's multifaceted spirit as both muse and ally in her journey of reinvention. In the quiet embrace of her rented studio, a modest space cluttered with canvases, scattered sketches, and the comforting aroma of fresh coffee, Vanessa began the work of forging a new self. The once intimidating blank surfaces slowly transformed as she channeled years of unresolved pain into every stroke of her pen and burst of color on her canvas. Each mark was more than art. It was a declaration, a refusal to let old wounds dictate her future. Late into the night, when the city outside whispered of slumber, Vanessa found solace in the act of creation. In these raw, unguarded moments, every line and texture on the paper became a testament to her rebirth. Here, amid the quiet hum of the urban night, she learned that every mistake was a stepping stone, every failed attempt a detour guiding her toward a truer vision of herself. With each sketch, she was dismantling the toxic bonds of her past, replacing them with the fluid promise of transformation. One rainy evening, as droplets raced down the studio window, a knock at the door signaled the arrival of Nathan, a seasoned designer and a mentor whose calm, reflective nature had earned him a reverence in Seattle's creative circles. Stepping inside, he studied Vanessa's work with a discerning yet gentle gaze. Leaning against a cluttered table, he remarked, "Vanessa, art isn't merely an echo of suffering. It's the magic that can transmute pain into beauty. Every mistake is a brushstroke in the larger tapestry of who you're becoming. Embrace them, and let this creative fire redefine you." His words, warm and sincere, resonated deeply with her. In that moment, Vanessa felt an alchemy at work, where her turmoil was no longer a shadow, but the very ink of her creative expression. Inspired by Nathan's guidance, Vanessa threw herself into relentless late-night sessions. The studio morphed into a sanctuary of trial and error, where scattered sketches, errant strokes, and sessions of fervent experimentation gradually yielded designs that shimmered with potential. The process was far from linear. There were moments of frustration when every idea crumbled, only to be followed by sudden bursts of insight that illuminated new paths. As the hours melted into dawn, her space became a living montage of her evolution, a visual diary of failure, persistence, and eventual mastery. In this crucible of creativity, Vanessa wasn't just crafting designs. She was redrawing the blueprint of her life. With every piece, she reclaimed a fragment of her soul and reshaped it into something breathtaking. The studio, once merely a room, had transformed into the very playground of her metamorphosis, a place where pain was reimagined as passion, and every setback was a precursor to a magnificent new beginning. Vanessa's transformation from a quiet sufferer to an audacious creator had not gone unnoticed. As word of her evocative, soul-bearing designs spread through the creative community, the call came unexpectedly. A prestigious design competition extended an invitation to her. This opportunity was more than just recognition. It was the turning point that promised to propel her from the shadows of her past into the luminous spotlight of achievement. The gallery for her first exhibition was a modern, airy space brimming with eager anticipation. Soft lighting danced over her canvases as intrigued onlookers whispered among themselves, drawn by the vivid interplay of pain and hope embedded in every design. As Vanessa wandered the room, she couldn't help but reflect on the journey that brought her here, from nights of solitary creative struggle to this public celebration of her rebirth. In that heady moment, with critical eyes fixed upon her work and gentle applause resonating in the background, she felt a twinge of both disbelief and profound pride. From humiliation to acclaim, she mused silently, realizing that each brushstroke was a memorial to the obstacles she had overcome. Amid the crowd, new allies emerged. Elliot, a fellow designer whose earnest enthusiasm had buoyed her through tough times, leaned in with a smile. "Vanessa, your work speaks of journeys only the brave dare traverse. Tonight, you aren't just displaying art, you're reclaiming your story." Nathan, ever the wise mentor, nodded appreciatively as he observed a seasoned art critic approach. The critic's measured tone carried undeniable admiration. "Here is a design that transforms suffering into beauty, a rare and captivating display of authenticity." Their words, interwoven with the murmurs of other peers, reinforced the narrative of personal triumph that Vanessa had built brick by painstaking brick. Every compliment and thoughtful critique underscored not only the evolution of her art, but also of her spirit. Her bold creations, born out of secret sorrows and the resilience of a reinvented self, forged an unbreakable bond with those present. In that gallery, amid easier laughter and reflective silences, Vanessa was no longer a woman defined by old wounds. She had become a beacon for change, a rising star whose journey resonated with the very core of anyone who had ever dared to rebuild after being broken. The evening closed on a note of promise. Every introduction, every shared moment of admiration affirmed that her path was one of lasting impact, where the beauty of transformation was both seen and celebrated. And as the audience slowly dispersed, Vanessa stood quietly at the threshold of the gallery, poised to embrace whatever new chapter lay ahead in her unfolding story. What other moments in her newfound success do you feel might shape her legacy even further? Perhaps a detailed conversation with an influential critic, or a serendipitous encounter that sets the stage for her next creative leap, could deepen the narrative even more. In the hushed corridors of her former family's world, whispers had begun to stir, a quiet murmur that the mysterious Vanessa, once so present at every gathering, had simply evaporated into thin air. At lavish dinners and somber reunions, voices drifted from one remark to another. In a private corner of one such evening, Marissa, the sister-in-law whose careless words had ignited Vanessa's transformation, now wore an expression that mingled regret with incredulity. Over clinking glasses and measured smiles, a distant relative confessed in a low tone, "We always took her presence for granted, never realizing what we were losing." The unspoken realization that Vanessa's departure had left an unseen void began to unsettle the carefully maintained facade of the family legacy. Interlaced with the present were vivid flashbacks, a montage of moments that contrasted the shallow, dismissive echoes of her past with the profound depth of her rebirth. One such recollection unfurled at a long-ago family barbecue. Vanessa's quiet, defiant response to a callous remark still lingered in the air as if suspended in time. In that memory, the biting remark, "If you ever disappeared, no one would notice," was followed by her internal declaration, "I'm Vanessa, 33, and I'm more than your whispered assumptions." These scenes merged seamlessly with current events, images of affluent relatives immersed in polite conversation, now overlaid with the radiant determination that had carried her far from those stifling walls. Within the warm, familiar confines of the family estate, an undercurrent of internal turmoil began to emerge. Marissa and the others, long ensnared by the inertia of narrow expectations and shallow achievements, found themselves battling a mix of defensive pride and gnawing guilt. Their conversations, once filled with trivial banter, increasingly betrayed hints of anxiety, a trembling acknowledgement of a reckoning that was long overdue. Even as they clung to the facade of perfection, every whispered comment and furtive glance towards each other revealed a subtle tension. The past, with all its dismissed potential and unhealed wounds, refused to be forgotten. This dual narrative, a cold, indifferent legacy on one side and Vanessa's profound, self-forged renaissance on the other, set the stage for an inevitable reunion. The flashbacks and present moments melded into a powerful counterpoint. The family's superficial bonds, hollow and brittle by comparison, stood in stark contrast to the rich, evolving tapestry of Vanessa's new life. In every whispered rumor and every spark of regret among her former kin, the shadows of the past reminded them that Vanessa had become something they never truly understood, a woman who transcended old confines and redefined her identity on her own terms. Even as the murmurs of regret and disbelief grew louder within the family circle, Vanessa's journey continued onward, undeterred. The lingering echo of her absence, now transformed into a promise of imminent reappearance, signified not just a loss for her former world, but also the unfolding of a future where transformation eclipsed the shallow echoes of the past. The sleek ambiance of the high-profile design symposium pulsed with anticipation and refined energy. Under glowing chandeliers and amidst a curated backdrop of innovative installations, Vanessa found herself immersed in a world where creativity reigned supreme. As she navigated the vibrant networking atmosphere, the hum of conversations subtly hinted at an undercurrent she hadn't expected, familiar faces from a past she once hoped to leave behind. During a panel discussion that brought together the most visionary minds of the industry, Vanessa took her seat among fellow experts, her presence an emblem of transformation. The moderator's voice mingled with the soft echoes of clinking glasses and murmured admiration as she introduced a segment on resilience in design. It was then that an unexpected ripple of recognition halted the flow of discourse. Across the stage, seated in reserved circles, were faces she recognized all too well. Her former in-laws, including a poised yet visibly unsettled Marissa, and a family matriarch whose expression betrayed concealed remorse. Their eyes, heavy with unspoken memories, bore into the room as if marking the passage of time since Vanessa's abrupt disappearance. When the session opened the floor for dialogue, the air vibrated with tension. In a moment charged with both resolve and quiet defiance, Vanessa rose to address the gathered luminaries. With calm authority, she stated clearly and deliberately, "I'm Vanessa, 33, a designer who chose transformation over resentment." Her voice, steady and self-assured, resonated with the confident cadence of someone who had transcended past wounds. The statement was not just an introduction, it was a nuanced declaration of her identity, the culmination of years spent refining herself into an artist unbound by the narrow expectations of those who once dismissed her. As the crowd absorbed her words, a hushed murmur moved through the audience, a mix of admiration, awe, and the faintest tremors of uneasy introspection. In that shared space, every whispered conversation and sidelong glance acknowledged the stark contrast between the shallow legacy of her former world and the deep, soulful breath of her rebirth. Her former family, caught in the liminal gap between regret and disbelief, found themselves confronted with undeniable truths. Vanessa's success was a living testament to resilience, and her art reverberated with the power of a spirit remade. In those charged moments, unspoken confrontations swirled like invisible currents through the room. The air crystallized with the weight of past dismissals meeting present transformation, a poignant reminder that true worth is carved not from the validation of others, but through the quiet, persistent act of self-reinvention. Vanessa's unforeseen reunion with her in-laws was more than a collision of worlds. It was an irrevocable declaration that she had risen above pain to craft an identity defined solely by the beauty of her own design. The event was set in a grand, modern convention center, where the blend of innovative design and artistic vision was palpable in every curated exhibit and whispered conversation. Vanessa, with her distinct and soulful creations, had not only caught the eye of the industry, but also reshaped what it meant to approach design. Tonight, she stood among the leading luminaries of the creative world, her work hailed as a breakthrough that wove personal narrative with visual innovation. As the announcement for the prestigious Beacon Award for Creative Excellence was made, the room fell into a reverent hush. Vanessa's name resonated through the speakers, a testament to a journey marked by struggle and metamorphosis, where her designs had transcended aesthetics to become declarations of resilience and hope. Stepping onto the stage under a spotlight that cut through the ambient glow of admiration, Vanessa accepted the award with a calm and reflective smile. The applause was not merely for a design well executed, it was for a vision that had reclaimed every moment of past pain and transformed it into a radiant, defiant triumph. In that pivotal moment, as she held the award close, her mind replayed the long, winding path that had brought her here. The painful echoes of criticism, the courage of her abrupt departure, the solitude of countless midnight design sessions, and the relentless promise of self-reinvention. In a quiet, heartfelt internal dialogue, she affirmed, "True transformation isn't about inflicting revenge. It's about rising above, reclaiming one's identity, and designing a future where every scar becomes a stroke of genius." Later, amid the subdued hum of post-event celebrations and hushed toasts with newfound friends and allies, Vanessa found a quiet corner to reflect. The vibrant energy of the night had given way to a moment of serene contemplation. In that reflective solitude, she realized that her greatest victory wasn't measured by a trophy or the accolades of critical acclaim. It was defined by her choice to turn every painful memory into a stepping stone toward personal liberation. Her creative journey had not been a bid for revenge against those who had dismissed her, but rather an act of profound self-affirmation. This triumph signified that the ultimate success lay in living a life of genuine creativity and unwavering self-worth, a narrative not of retribution, but of healing and restoration. In the crisp glow of an autumn evening, Vanessa orchestrated an art gala that pulsed with quiet resolve, a public celebration that was both absolution and victory. The venue, an elegant gallery nestled in the heart of the city, thrummed with carefully curated installations that told the story of her transformation. Every brushstroke, every suspended sculpture spoke of long nights of soul-searching and of a deliberate choice to carve a destiny far removed from the shadows of her past. As the night unfolded, the quiet hum of applause and thoughtful conversation gradually receded into a contemplative stillness. Vanessa found herself stepping into a secluded courtyard on the outskirts of the bustling gala area, a space where the past had a way of gently resurfacing. There, beneath the understated twinkle of fairy lights draped among blooming shrubs, she encountered Marissa, the sister-in-law, whose careless words had once sown the seeds of a profound journey, approached with an expression that mingled regret, curiosity, and the soft acknowledgement of change. In that intimate setting, a conversation began, not one laden with bitter reckoning, but a gentle, composed dialogue that bridged two very different worlds. Marissa's voice wavered as she ventured, "Vanessa, can you help me understand how you transformed such pain into something so breathtaking?" With quiet authority and compassion interlaced in her tone, Vanessa replied, "Marissa, every piece of art here is a fragment of my journey, a journey where I learned that true power isn't found in bitterness, but in the act of recreating oneself. I chose to channel my wounds into my work, and in doing so, I reclaimed my voice. I'm here not to reopen old scars, but to show that I have grown into someone who defines her own worth." Their words, measured and sincere, floated in the cool night air. In that moment, old grievances began to yield to a fragile understanding. Marissa's eyes softened as she reflected on the years of neglect and the dismissive remarks that had unwittingly ignited Vanessa's rebellion. The conversation was less a confrontation and more a symbolic farewell to a former way of being, a gentle nod to the possibilities of forgiveness and self-redemption. Later, as the gala's soft music mingled with echoes of past accolades and whispered hopes, Vanessa retreated to a quiet terrace overlooking the city's glittering skyline. Here, in the hushed intimacy of her own thoughts, she allowed the magnitude of her journey to settle within her. With every beat of her heart, she reaffirmed the truth that had guided her all along. The ultimate revenge was never an act of retaliation, but the quiet, persistent act of living a life defined by fulfillment, creativity, and unwavering self-empowerment. In that reflective solitude, Vanessa's inner voice murmured a final revelation. Her journey had come full circle. No longer tethered to the wounds of her past, she stepped boldly into a future crafted solely by her own terms. A future where every moment of joy was a reclamation, every work of art a defiant celebration, and every breath a testament to the power of transformation.